I think so. If we're doing TypeScript content, oh, hey, it's TypeScript content, okay? We don't mess around with that non-stuff, okay? There we go. We're not gonna get fully naked, okay? But if we're doing TypeScript content, you know we gotta look the part, okay? Hoodies off. Let's go. Okay, hey, next generation TypeScript. Are you ready for this? I'm kind of excited about this. What is next gen TypeScript?
Hi, I'm Ethan, and this video is an introduction to Effect, a TypeScript library to help developers easily create the complex applications of today and tomorrow.
Okay, exciting. Next generation. Here we're gonna turn up the volume. We're gonna turn up the volume. I'm actually at maximum. I'm at 153%. Spinal Tap 11. Can't get any louder.
We are stuck with JavaScript and all of its quirks, whether we like it or not. TypeScript has been a really big step, but the primitives it's built on are still fundamentally flawed. It's time to build with a library designed to handle the complexity of modern development. How
Okay.
often?
I do agree with this. I think JavaScript is a severely flawed language. But, to be fair, all languages are kind of severely flawed in their own way. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Except for Go and Rust. They're beautiful languages. And OCaml, C really is a perfect language. C++ is horrifying. Gosh, I'm sure Elixir's great. I've never used Elixir. Haskell's so glorious that you can only write white papers. Okay, so maybe it's just Java. Maybe JavaScript sucks.
Have you seen this kind of code?
Yeah.
What problems might there be here?
Several try-catch issues. Okay, so this is like my classic example of why I hate JavaScript. Where are the errors? This function doesn't state that it has an error. This function does not state that it has an error. This function does not, there's 3 possible places where errors happen.
The biggest problem is that this function could crash your program, but doesn't feel the need to tell you.
Boom! Let's go! It's like that guy read my mind. He read it. He read it. He knew it. I knew it. If it happens, it happens. Dude, pre-watch? No, it's because I've done this too much. It's because I've written too much. Ah!
Unsafe assumptions crash our programs at runtime and wake us up at 4 a.m.
Correct.
Handling these cases properly in vanilla TypeScript is less than ideal.
Did I? We have not gotten to a point in web dev where we say the phrase vanilla TypeScript, right? Is that a thing now? A language that's transpiled to a language that is interpreted? Ethan, I love you. This is you already have captured my heart with everything you're saying, Ethan. I am on your team. But please never say the word vanilla TypeScript again. I will emotionally be... I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm dying on the inside.
What if you forget to try catch? What if you forget one of the possible errors?
Yeah.
This is exactly as unsafe as the original function, but the 3 places it can crash are now explicitly stated.
Yep.
If you want it to never crash, you find alternatives for those or dies. Here's what a verbose version of that might look like.
Okay, this is good.
I know this may seem like a lot, but this is mostly caused by having to work around existing APIs that are designed around try-catch. It takes a bit of work at the weeds, but once you're into the effect world, things become much easier.
So right away, there's something that really worries me right off the rip. When I'm just looking at this code, right? This is just a result type. What I'm seeing right now is I'm just seeing effectively an attempt to mix 2 concepts together. Some sort of asyncing, understanding of promises. And then on top of it, it looks like it's really also doing what's it called? A result type. And so if you're not familiar with result types, we'll get your monads in order because I'm about to put my foot in your functor. Okay? So think about that. Should I put, is it my foot in your functor or my functor in your ass? I feel like the second one just doesn't sound the way I want it to sound. You know what I mean? Doesn't sound quite the way I want. It doesn't quite sound the way I want it to.
An idiomatic effect solution looks like this. Don't worry too much about the specifics here. We'll talk about the basic effect types and functions soon.
See, I'm always very worried about memory. So I come from a different world, right? I write on televisions. I think about memory. When I write code, I think about memory. Memory is kind of like a thing I should be worried about, right? And so when I see this, it worries me. You know what I mean?
The
All right.
love-hate relationship with JavaScript is something most developers share.
Yep.
You can't seem to escape it. The language has grown a lot, with new modern features and TypeScript making development surprisingly pleasant, but the pain points are still there. Effect brings TypeScript up another level, providing powerful primitives to make writing safe, asynchronous, resourceful, composable, concurrent, and observable programs easier than ever before.
I'm curious about the observable. I'm curious if he's going to address that because that's it's one of the hard parts about promises and things like that is that it's sometimes it's hard to observe your program in a good manner. Isn't TypeScript already safe? No, it's never been safe. It's not
Let's
going to be
start
safe.
with type safety. What's the problem with these two types? They're only generic over one parameter.
Correct.
TypeScript gives us the illusion of safety, but once things go off the happy path, you're left completely in the dark.
Also, just so you know, optimizations in JavaScript are often tied to like monomorphic functions and stuff like that. So when I see things where you have generics as parameters, you're also setting yourself up to get like destroyed in performance. Just a thing I'd like to throw out there.
I am here to tell you that it doesn't have to be that way.
Okay.
The effect type is the core of the entire effect ecosystem. Although their actual implementation is a bit more complex, it can be helpful to think of an effect as a function that takes in its requirements as arguments and returns either a value or an error.
I really don't like this interface right off the rip where error is first and then value. I'm more of a value error kind of guy, not an error value. That's kind of like the old Node way, which is error value. I've never been that kind of person. More into the whole, you know what I mean? Kind of more into that side. You know what I mean?
Takes in its requirements as arguments and returns either a value or an error. Now, back to JavaScript for just a quick moment. Asynchronous code is everywhere in modern apps,
Promises
but
do
the
kinda
promise
suck.
primitive leaves a lot to be desired.
Absolutely.
Promises are eagerly executed, meaning
Yep.
they begin execution immediately on creation. This means that they can never be used to represent a computation.
This is correct. I have never really liked that, but there is async iterators, which are kind of like a neat result of a promise. But I do agree the idea of a promise being hot is kind of annoying. I kind of wish I had like a way to. I kind of wish that's why often you'll see things like promise factories, where if you try to build any sort of async request queue, you kind of have to like make them into factories. So you have to have a function that returns a promise as opposed to just receiving promises, or else they just all execute right away. They're kind of
Only an
annoying. I get
already
that.
running computation that might have already completed and produced a value. Also, the value produced by a promise is implicitly memoized, meaning that when the promise is settled, the internal state of the promise is frozen and can't be changed anymore, whether the promise is fulfilled or rejected.
Correct.
Consequently, if you
Correct. Which means you may hold on to memory longer.
want to run the same computation again, you'll need to recreate the entire promise from scratch. Effects aren't like this. The effect data type represents an immutable value that lazily describes a workflow or a job, and all effect functions produce new effect values.
Again, worried about the memory of this. The thing that makes promises good is that they're also supported at a syntax level with async await. And that's why I like them, right? If I just had the raw dog promises, I wouldn't like it at all. And so I always see this is the same thing I always see people, Ethan, I think I love where you're trying to go with this kind of stuff. I've seen this also with like options or result types people try to do in Java or in TypeScript. And it's always the same thing, which is these ideas are great. But if there's no syntax support for these ideas and you have no pattern matching on top of it, which is all, syntax support, these things can be huge pain in the asses. You know what I mean? Like, these are not great experiences. And so until JavaScript gets generics built into it and all of that, like, how can this work? Okay, let them cook. You're telling me let bro cook? The building's not going to burn down? Okay, let me hear.
Effect values don't actually do anything. They are just values that model or describe effectful interactions.
Okay.
An effect can be interpreted by the effect runtime system into effectful interactions with the external world. If you're like me, your mind is probably racing with possibilities at this point. I am now going to give you an intentionally very quick tour of some of the things that the effect ecosystem offers.
My mind personally is racing with memory and desire that there is better syntax. I still love. I'll let him cook. We're letting him
Although
cook.
you're more than welcome to pause on each slide to try and understand what's going on, don't get too caught up in the specifics.
Yeah.
I'll go into more depth in future videos. Just try to get an idea of what's possible. Now that errors are in their own dedicated channel and clearly separated by type, it becomes trivial to handle errors case by case, all at once, or to let them bubble up to the
I'm curious if these catch. I'm curious if the catch tag that must use some sort of like name of the function, right? So that way, name of the constructor, so it's able to get the thing that's coming out of it correctly. It does look like RxJS, which is also a leaky abstraction. This is also, I mean, effect is a leaky abstraction. But I'm curious if it uses some sort of type completing, some sort of crazy inference, some sort of whatever that's able to infer out these strings, or do you have to manually type them in, hoping you've correctly typed them in? For me, that's always a big worry whenever I see strings. If that's the case, I'd much rather see you pass in a constructor, because if you already have the type, it'd be nice just to pass in the constructor. You know what I mean?
next effect. What's wrong with this snippet? Well, nothing, until you want to swap your live database client for a local test one. Sure, we could go full functional programming and pass every possible dependency as an argument, but that quickly becomes unrealistic. Effect provides a better way. In effect, a tag.
Hold on. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just trying to understand this. One thing, by the way, please stop doing this. There are libraries. The protobuf generation library does this, where they name the type and the constant the same value. It totally f's with trying to. You can't reuse the type easily sometimes, and it can be just very frustrating sometimes. Anyways, sorry. I'll keep going. Context tag. Okay. Function get users from this. DB client. Runnable. Okay. What's happening here?
Is a placeholder for a dependency of some type. We can use the tag just as if it was the actual implemented object in our effects without ever actually implementing it. Doing so causes that type to appear in the requirements field of the resulting effect. This tells the effect runtime that you must provide an implementation that matches the defined type before the program can be run. This can be done flexibly, anywhere in your program, meaning it becomes simple to swap out the implementation of a dependency when required. Modern
That's cool, because at least it airs out. It's kind of like some sort of trait implementation. It looks like a very in some sense, it's a very convoluted way to make a interface requirement. But I can dig it.
anywhere in your program, meaning it becomes simple to swap out the implementation of a dependency when required. Modern apps are complex, often involving complex dependency hierarchies. To account for this, Effect provides layer, a type describing the blueprint for the construction of a set of requirements. It takes some requirements in, may produce some error, and yields some requirements out. Resources in our application may require lifetime-related logic. The scope data type is fundamental for managing resources safely and in a composable manner in Effect. In simple terms, a scope represents the lifetime of one or more resources. When a scope is closed, the resources associated with it are guaranteed to be released. Modern applications require observability for us.
I guess I didn't see how they're guaranteed to be released. There must be some sort of. Okay. Hold on. So that means the effect itself is going to have its own. It has its own life cycles that it calls, and so acquire does this, release, so it actually will call and check for these things. Okay, so you have multiple life cycles then.
Associated with it are guaranteed to be released. Modern applications require observability for us to know what's going on inside them.
Yep.
Effect provides powerful logging capabilities with different levels such as debug, info, warning, and error, as well as the ability to provide a custom logger that can do more than just a simple console.log. Effect provides a powerful and composable scheduling toolkit for when you want to run an effect more than just once. Have you ever tried implementing jittered exponential backoff? If you were to try to implement this snippet without Effect, how would you do it? Would it be as flexible or as maintainable? This code
function that takes in a function, but I mean, I see what you mean. It's a non-trivial problem. If you haven't done your own throttle, your own debounce, your own backoff, those things can be kind of difficult. I always have a lot of questions whenever I hear these things, like, should you ever do those things? Because whenever you do these backoffs, whenever you do that, you can also accidentally create yourself a thundering herd in your own cloud and just destroy your own service. People, like, we did that at Netflix. We had this nice exponential backoff. Then we had all these different kind of ones. Yeah. and then all of a sudden the next thing you do, your clients are all just like, the request failed. We better make another request shortly. The request failed again. We should make it, but a little bit longer this time, right? So your service is just like, ouch, ouch, ouch. We've definitely done that.
It works while your meager startup only has 5 users. But what about when it grows to hundreds or thousands? That many requests at once will crash your users' devices. And remember, promises are eagerly executed.
Yep.
So we'll need to design a complicated async queue with batching and interruption to enforce a level of parallelism. Or we could use Effect.
Concurrency.
It really is this easy. Effect's fiber-based runtime manages everything for you. Lightweight threads of execution called fibers power Effect's runtime. Think of a fiber as a worker that performs a specific job. It can be started, paused, resumed, and even interrupted. Effect also seamlessly integrates with existing interruption APIs such as a port controller. Working with fibers directly is a pretty advanced use case you probably won't need for a while when starting out.
So when I hear that, the thing I don't like about that is that the process event loop is already a pretty dang good one, and you can't actually stop a currently running JavaScript item. You have to wait until JavaScript goes back to the event loop, right? You have to wait for the stack to be cleared. And so you can't pause it or interrupt it. You can only stop it at a certain point, which means that you have an event loop which orders things as they come, and now you're going to actually have a re-implemented event loop. And now you have to have all these tasks that are always kind of calling back, and you have to have something that's doing some sort of mega task listening to, and then comes in and tries to pluck these things off one at a time. And also, I mean, JavaScript is single process execution. I don't like to use the term single-threaded. I've been recently calling it GNU plus Linux. I don't like to use the term single-threaded just because V8 is not single-threaded. But your JavaScript only executes one line at a time. There's no parallelism. And so, you know, this idea of being able to break stuff and all that, you do have to understand what that means. Is that if you had, I can just assume here that if you have a pipe of 5 events and you fibre this thing, each one of those event or effects, each one of those, you could potentially pause between 2 of them, and it will stop executing at one of them, and then it will wait. I mean, things that I see right now is that I'm trying to understand a system that you would need this in, because what you're going to get is that you're going to get significantly worse performance. You're going to get significantly higher garbage collection. But you are going to have some conveniences. Some things that when I see some of these things, what I realize is that there's a lot of concepts being mixed here. There's like the result type, that we all want a good result type, right? We all want to be able to avoid having errors thrown, right? I think we can all agree on this, very, very much so like that. But I'm not sure if I want all the other things matched up with it, right? Like, I don't like results because I can't have pattern matching. But I also not sure if I want to mix it with the concepts of async. It almost feels like they need to be separate concepts, right? And by having them all mixed into one, I feel like this is... I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like, I get the idea. This reminds me of RxJS back in the day. When I got RxJS, I was super excited about it. Everything became RxJS. I got a golden hammer, and I solved all my problems with RxJS. Oh, you want to do drag and drop? Look at this. Mouse down starts the observable. Oh, mouse drag. Every 100 milliseconds it's on, I fire an event. Mouse up, stop it. Disconnect from the observable. Mouse down, and just do this over and over and over and over again. And I could see, like, everything became a nail because of my love for RxJS at one point. And then I realized kind of what it does, and all of a sudden I start hating it. And then I realized, like, how much it spreads, and then how much, it can become very difficult to debug these kind of programs. Because the reality is that most of the code that execute isn't your code. And so when things aren't working the way you think they are, debugging can become excessively difficult. You know what I mean? That's where I see some of the problems here.
Application code in TypeScript often solves the same problems over and over again.
Someone just said, yeah, observables was cool until you have to debug it. It's exactly, like, literally what I'm saying. Exactly. Precisely correct, which is they feel like these type of systems, they seem super awesome, but it's always the debug story that I really, really, really worry about. The thing is that Effect doesn't spread that much or to integrate well with vanilla code. I get that. Why am I so naked today? I'm doing some TypeScript.
Effect provides a rich ecosystem of libraries that provide standardized solutions to many of these problems. You can use these libraries to build your application, or you can use them to build your own libraries. However, Effect understands it's not always realistic to rewrite your entire application. By now, you might have thought back to other projects aimed at doing TypeScript better, or even other programming languages, the majority of which ultimately fall to the same fate: a lack of easy interop with the vast and unavoidable existing JavaScript ecosystem.
My assumption is that there's probably some sort of like simple exiting item that just converts it into a promise and go. That's my guess.
Not Effect. While it would be awesome to write applications that are Effect all the way down, you can just start with the pieces of the ecosystem that make the most sense for the problems you are solving. Do you just want to rewrite a single endpoint that does some complicated parallel asynchronous work, or has some particularly nasty error handling? You can do it with Effect today. Do you just want to take advantage of one of Effect's useful data structures? You can do it with Effect today.
Well, that's good. I mean, I like things that
However, as more and more of your codebase is using Effect, you will probably find yourself wanting to utilize even more of the ecosystem.
So that's one of the dangers, of course. So the underlying thing that he didn't say is that it also can easily spread, right? Maybe it spreads, and maybe you start solving things that you don't have to solve. It just becomes convenient to solve once you already have the abstraction. And that's why I get a little bit worried.
And lastly, if you think you could get out of using Effect because functional programming is too different and too difficult, think again. Effect has its own form of async await style syntax powered by generators. With generators, you can write effectful code in the imperative way that you already know. Effect's concepts may be new to you, and may not completely make sense at first. This is totally normal. Learning Effect is a lot of fun. Many developers in the Effect ecosystem are using Effect today to solve real problems in their day-to-day work, as well as experimenting with cutting-edge ideas for pushing TypeScript to be the most useful language it can be. I hope you feel inspired to give the Effect documentation a read, and to explore the Effect repositories and API reference pages.
I'm glad that at least he said go read the docs first. I like it. Hey, I like it. Start with the docs.
Consider joining the Effect Discord server, a great community for learning and discussing Effect. Links to all of that, as well as the transcript and markdown source code to this video, are available in the description, and corrections will be in the pinned comment. Finally, a huge thank you and shout out to No Boilerplate, to whom this video takes very strong inspiration from.
Nice.
His videos are incredible and inspired my passion.
I most certainly saw the No Boilerplate feel from this video. You can see it right away in the sense that this was obviously pretty straight to the point. There was not a lot of fluff in this video. Very well done. Really like this video. Great YouTube video overall. Very well done.
Rust. Just like I hope this video will inspire your passion for Effect. Please check out his channel. The link is also in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Come on, that's a Triss move. We all know that.
Content layer makes working with content.
Very well done.
Content layer makes working with.
Okay, I don't know what just happened there. It got me twice. I really did like that. I really liked the style of YouTube video. I think that he did a great job. I think that everything was good. Why am I not wearing? I already told you why I'm not wearing something. The thing I don't like about that, again, is just I foresee leaky interfaces. I foresee high memory. I see hard debuggability. I know there's observability built in with this whole logger situation. You can provide your own custom logger. I love that. I love that part. But I don't love that tech. I don't think it's good. And I don't often say things in such absolute terms. I really try never to say this. It's really just RxJS that gets my ire. I will not use RxJS. I will not use Effect. I am sorry. I love the concepts in there. I think they're all really, really great. I just don't think it's great for JavaScript. Personal opinion. Okay? I will not use it. I don't use Effect in React. I don't use Effect in this. I don't use React, by the way. Anyways, there you go. RxJS is pretty confusing. It's not confusing. I mean, once you get it, it's not confusing. It's what it does to your code. It's the same thing that happens with Effect. It's what it does to your code that can become really difficult. Appreciate your comments. The name is Ethan, I really liked your YouTube video. I'm sorry that I'm shitting on Effect, but hey, I really liked your YouTube video. You should go and subscribe to him because it was actually a very well done video, and I'm confident he's going to continue to make some really good videos. Again.